Okay, council needs to rise and report.
So that in the continuing interest of transparency and open government, the Deputy Reeve reports in open session the following outcomes from today's closed session meeting. The closed session minutes of June 2nd, June 16th, and August 5th were adopted as presented, and there was direction provided to staff. So if I can have a mover and seconder for that.
Moved by Sherry, seconded by Krista Lee. All in favor? Carried. Now we'll recess till 6:30. Thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody to the meeting tonight, September 2nd. Just to clear up any confusion, council set tonight at 4:30, started the meeting for a closed session, and we've been in closed session too then. So we're actually rejoining the public meeting at 6:30 now, we're rejoining it. And we will start the meeting in at the open forum, of which there's nobody registered for it. So we'll pass on and we'll go to no presentation, so there's a deputation. And we'll start the meeting with a deputation. Interjex Renewable Energy, Thomas Dean, Abdul Ritchie, and Rob Miller. Would you please come forward? Need one more chair, yeah. Yes, Jason's trying to get that up, is he? We're just waiting to get the presentation up. While we're waiting, I'll just reiterate, this is the first meeting with council with the proposed project. So we're seeing a presentation for the first time officially. Okay? Who's taking the lead? All right?
Is
If the red light's on, it's on.
red is on?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Excellent. Thank you. Tom Dean, Abdul, and Rob here. So I'm the Director of Development for Interjex for the province of Ontario. Abdul is the project manager for this project, and Rob is experienced in helping us out here in Ontario, living out of Kingston. So he has a lot of the relationship holding with the landowners that has happened over the last 6-8 months, give or take. So between the three of us, we hope to be able to answer all your questions this evening.
All right.
Yes, sir. Next slide, please. Right now we'll just do a little bit of an introduction to Interjex. So Interjex Renewables is a Canadian renewable energy company only. So we do not do fossil fuels or natural gas, anything along those lines. We do battery, hydro, solar, and wind as of right now. We have been in business for 30 years, based out of Montreal. We cut our teeth in the hydro world, and that's where we started. So we have more hydro assets than anything else, but I will say that there's not much hydro to be exploited anymore, or easy hydro. So in the last number of years, we've branched off and focused on wind and solar specifically, and then battery energy storage is the next evolution, but we have a couple projects only of that. So we were a public company up until about a month and a half ago, and the Quebec pension plan bought the majority of the shares, made an offer to take it private, and we are now officially a private company with the Caisse de dépôt, or the Quebec pension plan, as our holder. So I mean, the numbers kind of speak for themselves at this point here. So just over $9 billion total assets value, over 600 employees, 92 operating facilities, and 40 partnerships with the First Nations right now. So this project, along with all the other ones that we're looking to do in Ontario this year, come with First Nation partnerships as well. Next slide, please. So the 4 countries that Interjex operates in is Canada, the United States, Chile, which is on the left there off of California, and France, which is off of Newfoundland in the upper right. So it's a list of the different operating facilities in the upper right of that little table, and then under development are projects as we deem that have power purchase agreements or are very near to having power purchase agreements. This project, for example, would not qualify to be quote unquote under development until such point as it were actually awarded a contract by the government. Next slide, please. So what brings us here today? So the Ontario government has, through their annual planning outlook, has released the need basically for up to 75% more power by the year 2050. So in order to meet that need, they have put together LT, or long-term. For this one is 2, because LT1 was the battery energy storage procurements previously. So LT2 is for energy, wind, solar. There is a battery component along with it, but we're just talking to you about solar today. The date for submission is the 16th of October of this year. And they have noted that there should be one RFP every year for the next 3 years after this year in a sequenced manner that should be aiming for, same type of October submission date. So I think the big takeaway here is that this is the same government that had canceled a bunch of renewable energy contracts 7, 8 years ago, and has now come back and shown that there is a need for power, and renewables is one of the fastest to market. So as soon as they say we need X amount of power, renewables can be on the grid before almost any other energy project. So what makes this RFP unique? Specifically, here's the municipal support, and this is, I think, a big one that differs from the last time around. So for this RFP, we require municipal support prior to submission on the 16th of October, whereas previously that was not required. So that's a new item for this RFP and all the ones going forward. For the technologies, specifically solar and wind, as I mentioned, there is a capacity stream for the batteries, but we have a colleague dealing with that one. The Indigenous support and ownership, there's a certain amount of, or number of criteria points that are awarded for percent ownership for the First Nations. So from 0 to 50% ownership, and at 50 and above is the maximum percent ownership and maximum number of points that you can get. And the in-service date is no later than the 1st of May 2030. After that point, you start getting penalties from the government. There is also a bonus, if you will, to the power purchase agreement should you be able to be online sooner. So the government is emphasizing quick projects and getting energy onto the grid as quickly as possible. Next slide, please. So this is just a visual representation of what I was speaking about before on the cadenced approach. So they're still referencing it as LT2, long-term 2, and distinguishing it between window 1, window 2, window 3, and window 4. This shows that we will be submitting in October. We will theoretically hear back in April the following year. That's the planned date for the government to announce the winners. And then construction could start as early as 2028, pending timelines for environmental permits, but has to be on the grid, as I mentioned, no later than arguably the end of 2029, because we don't want to be doing construction during the winter. Next slide, please. So specifically with respect to this project, so I know that there's been a little bit of maybe a clarity here of the number of megawatts. So we put in up to 150 when we put this forward. In reality, that would be the maximum that could be used if we used all the land. It's not going to be possible due to the environmental constraints and trees and everything that we have to work around. So right now, the highest that it could be that we're looking at is 100 megawatts AC connected to the grid. Most likely, it will be somewhere in the range of 80 to 85 at this point. So yeah, site location, we have a map that we can show. So we're using approximately 650, or 2/3 of the 650 acres, so about 450 acres. We will be connecting to the H23 230 kV line, of which the ISO has confirmed that there is capacity in that line. And this project, it says 20 years of life. In reality, the project life is probably closer to 35 years, whereas the contract with the ISO, the first one, initial one, is 20 years. And then we'd be looking to do medium-term engagements with them for 2 to 3 stints of 5 years afterwards. Next slide, please. So yes, there is the map of what we are proposing. The property to the bottom left is the largest single property that we have. This is using the majority of the space, excluding watercourses and wetlands that we have identified, and excluding any major tree removal. So this is approximately 85 megawatts, give or take. And then if you look in the upper right corner, there's a little parcel up there that's got some solar panels on it. If you look at the leftmost point where it meets the red line, just south of that line is where we would be looking to put the substation and connecting directly to the line. So this project would not look to have 230 kilovolt transmission lines. What we would look to do in order to connect the westernmost parcel to the substation, the preferred routing, and the poles, I should say, would look like standard telephone poles. They would have 1 to 2 cables on them. The preferred would be to go north, just north of the line, and use a right-of-way that is up in that area to move west to east, to then cross back over that line, reconnect with the substation, and connect to the line. Next slide, please. So local and regional business opportunities. I think it is important to say that it would be wrong to sell this project as a job creator. The majority of the jobs here are during the construction season. And then the operational life, normally it's 1 to 2 full-time members, site manager, site worker, and then there are opportunities locally for snow removal and kind of grass maintenance, cutting, items such as that. So on this one, I think maybe something that's worth point of note is we would be aiming to do construction in 2028, permits allowing, and that we could look to employ anywhere from 100 to 150 people full-time during the construction period. And again, it is worth noting that the majority of these will be trades of some sort. So it's not as much just open manual labor. So I just want to get that out there as get ahead of it. Next slide, please. So the environmental monitoring, this generally goes, I would say, in 3 stages. It goes pre-construction, construction, and then post-construction. So as of right now, we have Dylan Consulting as our representative for the environmental works. Dylan has been out since May of this year, going out and classifying the land, delineating the land, trying to do species at risk and wildlife habitat assessments. As of right now, looks pretty positive in the sense that there are not known alvars in the area. There's nothing that's pointing to anything that is a fatal flaw as of right yet. So we feel confident on the environmental side that we should be able to find enough land to do 80 to 85 megawatts on those parcels. Now, this is to say is that every renewable energy project will go through the renewable energy approval. And that plan essentially is a full suite, again, to miss anything or to collect anything that we may have missed in 2025 will be out in 2026 again. with the goal of completing all the field studies towards the end of the summer in 2026, completing our reports at the end Q4 of 2026, and then starting the engagement process, which should take anywhere from 6 months to a year of writing the reports, doing consultations, and then getting the final permit approved. Next slide, please. So in terms of project benefits for the local community, I think that there's been some very preliminary discussions to be had. There are a number of different ways in which municipalities go about doing this, whether it be through a zoning change, potentially to commercial, an assessment such as that. They host revenues, the landowners themselves, of receiving a operational payment for the land that is used for the solar farm, and then community contributions. So while we've had some preliminary discussions with Jason, we haven't identified any number value as of yet. So, I think it's fair to say that we're kind of looking in the $1,200 per megawatt per year as being a community contribution as maybe the start of our discussion. And we can take it from there going forward. Next slide, please. This is just a little bit more detail of the schedule itself. So we are sitting there in the siting and early engagement, and working towards the submission of the RFP. As mentioned, April of 2026 is when we should be getting, the industry should be getting the winners. And then from April 26 to the end of 2027 is doing all the environment, the permitting, the advanced engineering, the procurement, all that, so that we're prepared to break ground on in 2028. And next slide, please. So the municipal support resolution, I think this is on the right-hand side, just a copy-paste of the prescribed form that has come from the IESO that would need to be executed and submitted with the submission if you were to support this. Yeah, I think the intent of this is to ensure that the municipality has a vote in the project itself, unlike years past. Next slide, please. So it is worth noting that the MSR is a support for right now to allow us to move forward. It is not a project approval, it's not a road use agreement, and it's not anything else that can be pulled from that. Next slide, please. And then that is the end of the basic information.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah.
My name's again Rob Miller. Just a little bit of context, because I know we talk about megawatts and what the province is doing. Essentially, almost every jurisdiction in North America needs power because of load growth, industry, data centers, AI, electrification, heat pumps, EVs, everything like that. The Ontario grid, the government's recognized the ISO, well, the ISO does our system planning like year by year. Our grid is about 40,000 megawatts, and the province and the ISO has come out and said we want about 20% of the power in the province, new power, because we need, there is a significant growth to come from renewables. So about 8,000 megawatts, 20% of 40,000 megawatts. And the reason the government wants renewables, well, A, it's clean, there's no emissions, but it's also the lowest cost form of new generation. It's less expensive than nuclear. The government wants to maintain about a 50% nuclear footprint. So refurbishing existing plants and adding the 4 SMRs, but that's expensive. The government's come out and said The new nuclear builds, the power coming from those plants is going to be 16, 17 cents. All of these renewables coming are going to be competitively bid. There'll be transparency on the price. I don't know what the price will be, but I will suggest that it's going to be high single digit. It's going to be very competitive, low-cost power. One of the Achilles heels or one of the issues with renewables in the past was intermittent. When it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning in the middle of winter, there's no sunshine. When it's not windy, your turbines aren't spinning, generating power. So the government and the ISO, that's why they've included battery energy storage. And they're going to procure in a different procurement. The first window for batteries is in December. They're going to procure gigawatts of storage. Ontario's actually a little bit behind on the storage front, like California, Texas. There's some other jurisdictions in the US that are adding gigawatts, like thousands of megawatts of batteries, thousands of megawatts of wind, and thousands of megawatts of solar. Because it's, as Thomas said, it's rapid to deploy or put in. Solar's got a relatively low environmental impact, and it's very cost effective. So that's kind of why the government is procuring is procuring renewables now. Essentially, they need all forms of power. They want the nuclear. They might still add some more gas plants. I know we have the Lennox plant. They expanded the Lennox generating station. Achura, the wholly owned subsidiary of OPG, is putting in the batteries and the gas there. They're just rapidly trying to get power in the province so we can maintain growth and do it cost effectively. They're really honestly trying to protect or insulate the rate base, all of us as consumers, from our power prices going up too much.
Okay. All right, I've heard the presentation. I'll open it to the floor for any questions or any questions from council. No questions? Linda?
Two questions. You talked about a bonus to the power purchase agreement. Sorry. The government is offering a bonus to power purchase in the power purchase agreement. Does that bonus go to you guys, or does it come to the landowners, or does it come to the township, or a blend?
Yeah, so it's a bonus on top of what the IESO would be paying the project. So the goal that we would, the reason why I mentioned that is that there's an effort to get the project in the ground quicker, because it will ultimately, how do I say, be more competitive because of the bonus. So if we think that the project could go in 2028, then we would factor that into the financial model of it all. So the actual cost, how do I say it, in years, it would be factored into the financial model. So it's not on top, it's not found money, maybe is a better way of putting it. It is theoretically accounted for money. So for example, in any of the wind projects, we just know that there's no possible way that we would be able to be completed the project before the deadline. So in our financial model, we won't assume any type of benefit or any type of adder for it. Because solar farms, at least at this scale, are normally a single year build, we could still start in 2028 and complete in 28. So yeah, that adder would be factored in, I guess, to the cash flows, to the 1,200 that we would be putting forward here.
Along that same vein, have you been made aware of our Community Vibrancy Fund?
Not in detail, I would say.
Another question, you talked about that you didn't see any alvar out there when you were walking, but I talked to a person who lives out there, and they described the land, and it sounds like some of it is alvar.
So I can only talk to the areas in which Dylan have walked and delineated for us. So on the map itself is what they've looked at, and they haven't found any Alvar that meets the criteria.
The last question is just from a constituent. I'm just going to read what she wrote. During the August 20th open house in Enterprise, it was mentioned that the Interjects and the Enterprise Solar Project wins with the IESO in April, they would apply for another site. Can you please provide more detail on this other site tonight?
Yeah, so I think in the short answer is no. We can't provide much information, and I say that only because we don't yet have enough land signed up to warrant a second project just yet. So the idea I think that we were talking about was, I think, to provide some comfort in the sense that what we are presenting during the open houses and in this meeting is going to be the project boundaries. Should there be more land acquired, signed up, enough land to have a second project, it would be a complete second project. And it would be another submission. We'd have to come back here to you for another meeting and approval.
Go ahead.
One last point. Because this is so fresh and new to us, how many landowners who aren't going to be part of the actual project but will be impacted by the visual of it, or the annoyance of the substation or the transmission lines? Because the last time we went through this, there was a huge discussion about transmission lines above versus below ground.
Yes.
And, we had to kind of come to a real compromise on all that. So how do you envision
Sure.
what you're planning is going to impact on the people that are living in the area but are not part of the project?
So maybe working backwards, we could talk about the substation first. I think that's the easiest one. So the substation should be at a site and out of audio range of anybody. So it's up on the line. The majority of the houses are on the south side, or towards the south, I should say. There's enough distance that we don't foresee any issues with noise propagating from the substation. And because the substation itself is right next to the transmission line, there will not be what I would call a high voltage transmission line that I think you experienced with Blue Earth in the past. So the transmission line that will be required is going from the western parcels. Like I said, the goal would be to go north and then along the existing transmission line there to avoid any visual impact to anybody. If for some reason that is not the case, the secondary option, albeit less desirable, could see potentially going south along the road, along concession 9, and then up. Maybe there is obviously an option of burying those. Financially, it is definitely more difficult and more expensive to do so. So I would say that our strong preference would be to go north with the transmission lines and use that right away. And then I think the last aspect of it is for the landowners that are not there but that can see it. So there are options, and I think we have to assess the visual impact. So on the parcels on the left, we do not foresee a massive visual impact for the existing landowners, given the current trees that are there. And our goal is to not remove those trees. In the northeast, that little parcel up there, we don't foresee any issues, and that could be also one of the areas in which we drop to go from kind of 100 down to 80 megawatts as well, that small little portion in the northeast. For the major portion, there's definitely the risk along the western edge. There's a couple landowners that live west of that, and then you have Concession Road 9 itself to the south. So the options here that we can put forward is something along the lines of a visual break. So it's been used in other projects previously, and that would consist of, a berm with evergreens planted on top of it, so that, it essentially obscures the view into the solar farm.
Quickly, when you talk about the substation, you said it's out of sight and it's out of sound. Will there be light pollution from the sound station, like substation, like these people living back there enjoy the peace and quiet and the lack of light, street lights and things like
Yeah.
that? Is it going to be illuminated?
No.
Okay.
Sherry?
Just a quick question. You had a couple of open houses, I understand, in Enterprise. I wondered how well they were attended and how people feel about the thing.
Well, I do recognize some people behind me from the open houses. So I would say they were okay attended. I think that some lessons learned on our part is we could have done a better job in getting the information out in different ways to get it to more people, not just through the newspapers as well. So I think that's a lesson learned from our side. I would say that the concerns, and this is not by any stretch an exhaustive list, but definitely were brought forward to the past experiences with the Blue Earth project, mainly around just the issues with the transmission line. The other items I think that were brought forward of importance would be the recycling thereof of the solar panels, of which there is no easy answer, unfortunately, at this stage. And right now we prepared something so we can kind of dive into it a little bit more. Yeah, I would say that I think a couple of landowners potentially concerned about the impact to them and their life with the solar panels around it.
Rob?
Yeah, I'm just curious about your construction route. Now, I had an opportunity to be somewhat involved a little bit with the White construction on the 401 near Odessa, with a company called White ran it. And they rented a quarry from Lafarge to store their panels. They had a genie lift and they would transport them there. And I got to see a little bit of that operation. I know things have evolved since then. Now, based on where you're going to be, are you planning on taking all of your construction items, panels, aggregate, that sort of stuff to the site and then work within it? Or are you planning on trucking it back and forth from another site?
No, we wouldn't have like a laydown yard, I guess is maybe like an alternate site. We would go directly to site there and manage it from internally, yes.
Just the reason I ask that is Kirk Road is a pretty narrow little road. I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yes, yeah.
And even the Ninth Concession is not exactly a thoroughfare. So thinking about transporting, how long would it, if everything were to go forward and all hypothetical, of course, but if it did go ahead, you would clear the land, I'm assuming. I mean, maybe you can go through the process with me after and correct me.
Absolutely.
So you clear the land and so on, you move your items there, which would take you can explain to me how long roughly that would take. And at that point, can I assume that the traffic would be pretty light duty, or are you planning on creating your own access road from somewhere else?
So I would say we're not planning on creating our own access road. We're going up Frith and then going up Kelly Road off Concession 9 there, so directly into the sites themselves. I would say I think the road use agreement is probably the key document there in terms of how we agree with you to move the construction material and then move the material itself for actually building it. So you're correct in the sense that the first stage is removal, clearing of anything that might be there. For these sites, most likely the technology is going to be fixed panels rather than single axis tracker. So at the end of the day, there's not really much difference between them when it comes to the actual foundations, the racking, and then the racking holds the solar panels. So in reality, prepare the land, and then we come in and we put the foundations in, the racking on top of it, and then the solar panels get installed, the power cables get connected, and then the solar farm essentially gets commissioned after that. So it's not, they like to say that everything kind of within the within the fence is a bit of a commodity nowadays when it comes to solar. It's a bit of a kind of a Lego plug and play aspect of it. Just ensuring that you get the right foundation and you get the right technology for your site.
In regards to their footings, obviously they're going to be cemented in. With these two types, or actually there's 3 different locations from what I'm seeing, any idea as to how long the locals would experience the cement trucks coming in and out? I mean, it depends on the pours, depends on the challenges with the weather, and I understand that, but
Sure.
in these types of aspects, you've got 1, 2, 3, it looks like your first largest section, I'm sorry the map's not up, is about approximately twice the size of the rest of them. But from your experience, that's a lot of cement trucks rolling through.
It definitely is, and I would say it'd probably be a couple months worth of, yeah, but it wouldn't necessarily be a full continuous of it. I think that's something that we can get you more detail on, just to get you a better assessment.
But on, I think Councillor Fenwick, sorry, you mentioned concrete in the foundations. That engineering, the geotechnical, hasn't been 100% finalized. A lot of times it's, if it's soft ground, it can be a driven pile. And sometimes it's a screw pile. Actually try to avoid cementing piles into the ground, but to be determined. There's certainly cement pads for the inverters and the medium voltage transformers, and pads at the substation, but typically there's not a significant amount of concrete. Yeah.
And maybe I would say too is that given, so on the eastern side, on that property, there is more exposed rock than there is on the western side. So it is possible that the actual foundations might be slightly different from parcel to parcel, and even within the parcels itself.
Anybody else, member of council, any questions? Seeing none, I'd just like to comment on it. I mean, if you haven't recognized this, you will recognize it very soon. You will be judged against our past experience. Our past experience with Blue Earth had significant challenges, okay? And also significant learnings. So as if we agree to this, as we get into it, those learnings will come forward. And I just want to state that quite clearly. Things like the road use agreement and how it's going to be rehabilitated, and that we already have experience with that sort of thing, and the vibrancy agreement sort of thing. So other than that, I'm looking for a recommendation to receive a presentation from Thomas Dean, Abdul Ritchie, and Rob Miller for information purposes only. Moved by Wendy, seconded by Sherry. All in favor? Carried. Did you need anything else? No, that's fine. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Yep. Okay. Yep. I'd like to add a staff report to that to be brought back for the next meeting. Is that agreeable with the mover and seconder? Everybody's in agreement with that. Yep. Thank you. Next deputation, Liz Curran and Charlotte Bowes. Could they come forward, please? Good afternoon, evening, I guess it is now.
Dr. Bowes couldn't be with me tonight on very short notice, and she apologizes for that. So I'd just like to thank council for agreeing to meet with me on short notice. I'll start with introducing myself. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Liz Curran, and I'm current practice partner with Dan Curran and Sandra Cowan at Tamworth Medical Center. Dr. Curran and I took over for Dr. Lang McFadgen in January 2020, after he served 43 years providing medical care to our community. And together, Dan and I co-manage about 2,300 patients, oversee their primary care. This year, Dr. Cowan celebrates 51 years of primary care practice, and she's planning for retirement in January of 2026. Before Sandra was prepared to bow out, she was determined to find the perfect fit for our medical community and the patients who she's cared for many years. She would attend resident dinners put on by Queens, and she would go to all sorts of job fairs on her own accord and time, and she would sing the praises of Tamworth Medical Center. and speak about how wonderful Community Tamworth is, highlighting this gem of a clinic that we have the privilege of calling home, like our work home, every day. And luckily, she crossed paths with Dr. Bose in 2023 and convinced her to come out and do some locum work for us. We've been paying her on a locum contract for a few years now, and she has recently agreed to take over Sandra's practice. So as of January, she will be our new practice partner, and she will assume the care of another 1,000 patients at Tamworth. So when Sandra began this practice in the mid-'70s, she came to Tamworth with this vision of keeping family medicine local and comprehensive. She went to residency training with Dr. Lang McFadgen at Queen's University, and she was able to convince him to join her. Together, they brought 95 years of medical experience to our small community, which to date has spanned in some instances 5 generations. And I'm certain, or nearly certain, that no family doctor in recent history has achieved such an honorable accomplishment. For a number of years, Lang was trying to retire, and there had been a couple of instances where a doctor was almost there and then didn't show up. And so when they approached Dan and I about taking over the practice, we went back and forth for quite a while. And in November of 2019, we met with Sandra and Lang, and we said, okay, we'll do it. And we shook hands, and like 4 weeks later, Lang was gone. He went running for the hills, and I often joke he thought we were going to change our mind. He bowed out with any sort of public acknowledgement, very quietly and respectfully. No physician ever enters this practice for citation or decoration. The finest ones do from a place of conviction. The profession is demanding and the work is never ending. It often comes with some sort of sacrifice: missed family dinners, vacations, late nights at the office, hours of unpaid work. But for physicians like Lang and Sandra, those sacrifices were just part of who they were and what they did. I often joke with my patients that it takes 2 of us to replace every one of Lang, and it's true. It's been the greatest honor of my career to follow in his footsteps. He was my family doctor for, I guess, 32 years, and to share the care of the community that I grew up in and have always known as home, and now to work alongside and learn from Sandra. Our team at Tamworth, we're planning a little celebration for Lang and Sandra. They don't know about it, and so I respectfully also ask the audience not to mention anything about this meeting, because I didn't realize there'd be a whole bunch of people here tonight. And I'm glad that I wrote this little speech 5 minutes before I got here. But when we were trying to decide, how do you acknowledge an accomplishment so grand? It's pretty remarkable, and the only thing that we could think of was this. And so on behalf of myself and Dan and Charlotte coming in for Sandra and our amazing team at Tamworth Medical, many who have been there for years and years with Lang and Sandra, some of our secretaries have worked for longer than I've been alive, quite literally. We would like to respectfully ask that the council allow us to rename the medical center in honor of Lang and Sandra. For their years of dedication, the care they provided to our community, the professionalism and the unmatched medical care. We're willing to do this on our own accord, but since the township purchased the clinic, which is something else Lang and Sandra really pushed for a number of years ago, hoping that the care would stay local and managed by local family GPs, we wanted to ask for permission before we went forward with that. And that's all I have.
Any comments from council? Wenda?
This is great, Liz. So is it going to be Cowan McFadgen or McFadgen Cowan?
You got it. It's definitely Cowan McFadgen. It's always been Cowan McFadgen.
Rob?
I'd be pleased to make that motion if someone would second me on it.
We have a recommendation in front of us. Okay, we have a recommendation in front of us that we just receive the report tonight, and then we come back with a report afterwards on a naming.
Jeepers, I'd like to jump the gun on that one. Well, there's nothing.
Well, we don't have a policy, so we need to develop a policy to finish it, to do it properly.
I suppose we got to do this properly.
Okay.
Therefore, carry on with your questions then.
I have a question. So what would it be called then?
So it would be called, well, I mean, we're open to suggestions from council also. They've cared for many of you guys and extended family members over the years, but it definitely has to be Cowan/McFadden, because Sandra was there first. I think out of respect and language, concede to that, he'd be fine. And probably the Cowan/McFadden Family Medical Center, or something along the lines of that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, can I have the recommendation? Somebody move the recommendation? Wenda? Go ahead.
On Friday. Yeah, yeah,
Quick.
yeah.
Can we not just,
Well, the celebration is just for the retirement, is it not?
Well,
But
it's
you-
our gift to them on Friday. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be approved.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be approved. That is, we will still have a good time.
Yeah.
We'll leave it with you guys. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
To follow up with that, I'd just like to thank council. I know you guys all had a part in passing our request for funding for our expansion, which happened through the COVID pandemic. And when Dan and I came to the community, that was the one request we had, was to have some more space so that we could facilitate more learning opportunities, because we only had 2 clinic offices each, like to share between the 3 of us. And through that expansion, we were able to start the Queen's residency learning as of last July. And so far, we've had 5 residents through, and we have 4 more signed up for this fall and spring. And one is a local resident who actually did an elective medical rotation with us before this expansion happened and is really interested. So I think that's one of the ways we're able to keep family medicine operating locally, is by, having our local residents come back to our own community and give them the opportunity. If they come and have a good experience, then they'll likely come back. And we wouldn't be able to do that without the support you guys extended us. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Liz. Go ahead, Sherry.
I'm going to try one more time. Since they can do it anyway, and we don't have a policy, and their celebration is Friday, can we just, is there any reason, Jason,
We do have a rules of procedure policy about deputations, and generally speaking, decisions are not made on the night that the first time council's had an opportunity to hear on a proposal, and then make a decision in that moment, that there is a cooling off period typically.
And that's all I have. Thank you guys
Thank
for your
you.
time this evening.
Can I have somebody move the recommendation, please, that we accept Liz's report and that we have a report brought back to us? Moved by Bob, second by Crystal Lee. All in favor?
Just for clarity, is that a staff report on
Staff
a policy
Yeah.
for naming of buildings? Okay.
Yep. All in favor? Carried. All right, thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, item 9.1, council and committee conference attendance policy. We have a recommendation in front of us. The council received the report entitled Council and Committee Conference Attendance Report, and the council adopt the bylaw, being a bylaw to adopt a council and committee conference attendance policy. Any questions from council on this issue? Yep, go ahead, Jason.
This is in response to the prompting at budget time when we allocated a certain amount of funds to annual attendance to conferences and training. We had identified that the current policy has indicated that members of council were able to attend up to 2 conferences per year, and we were asked to bring back an updated policy to 1. But as you'll see, you have a far different document than that one line, I guess, in a relatively simplistic policy, and we went and did some research and felt it prudent to update the policy. If we're going to take the time to update one aspect of the policy, that we should have a pretty robust policy. One of the bigger changes is that we've looped in committee members as well, because the Committee of Adjustment also has the opportunity to attend, so we're harmonizing that under one policy for both council and committee. But we've also kind of tried to be pretty transparent and prescriptive around all aspects of conference and training attendance, and to, in the appendix, also identify our typical conferences, but that's not necessarily an exhaustive list and not one that is the required list, but just serve as guidance for council. But this would reflect the kind of policy updates that we want to keep doing as we review different policy documents. If we're taking the time to update one aspect of a policy, we want to make sure that we bring back a complete policy to council in the process. Happy to answer any questions.
Any comments? Wendy?
Just in regards that sometime in one year, you could end up going to two different conferences and it ends up being in that budget year. Like November can be the one that's in London, and then the next one is March, and then it looks like you went to two, but in the counselor's mind, they went to one in the fall of one year, and then they went to one in the spring of the next year, not realizing that they would fall under the same budget. So will a staff person be keeping tabs on that to keep the counselors in check?
From a typically, that would be when the request is made to attend a particular conference or a session, that would be checked and confirmed before booking. I would say that in an ideal world, shortly after we complete a budget or early in the year, that we would poll council as a whole to pre-map out, I guess, the desired conferences for the year, so that we could plan for those accordingly rather than doing them ad hoc. So the more we can pre-plan the calendar, the less likely we're going to run into scheduling conflicts and or budget overruns.
Any other questions or comments? Krista Lee?
I would like almost there to be a bit of flexibility around, now it has, before it was like an amount, and so now I do like that it's clear that it's one municipally oriented event annually, but is there any possibility of flexibility there in that, what if you don't go to one of the bigger conferences, because sometimes there are these online trainings, so like better understanding planning, these kind of smaller online even, would there be an ability for some flexibility there that could be like two, if under this amount, in that you might be doing two online trainings, that kind of thing? Do you know what I mean? Like AMO is often sending out training opportunities for different things, and I've seen some around planning to better understand that from a municipal perspective, and those are much smaller. I just don't know if we'd want some kind of flexibility like that in the policy.
What, Jason?
I believe that was discussed at budget time when this came up, and that the direction that I understood I received was to update the policy to reflect one. So that's what the policy was updated to.
Any other questions, comments? If not, we have a recommendation in front of us. The recommendation is the council receive the report entitled Council and Committee Conference Attendance Policy, and that the council adopt bylaw, being a bylaw to adopt a council committee conference attendance policy. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Sherry, seconded by Wendy. All in favor? Policy's carried. That's what you need? Okay. Staff mobile device policy. We got a policy night. Recommendation that council receive the report entitled Staff Mobile Device Policy regarding the implementation of a new staff operational mobile device policy. Jason?
Thank you, through you, Deputy Reeve Davison. This is another policy update, as mentioned. This is a operational policy, so it's not one that requires council approval, but one that we are providing in transparency to council and how we're updating the deployment of mobile devices. Just as for some basic history, we have in the past have had a bit of a shared device model where certain staff were able to utilize their personal device for some light usage for township operational needs. There's more demand, I guess, on certain staff to be using their devices for township needs. The intent is to better clarify when the township is providing access to a county or a township provided device and for what purposes, and then defining the ownership of the account and the device itself and what is considered acceptable usage. What we do have is a certain population of staff that are not office workers who sit at a desk and have access to email on a standard issue laptop or desktop computer, but we have more and more staff that are field workers who are now using smart devices to respond to work orders or do data collection or just have access to corporate communications through email. And the more we're asking them to use those devices, the more it's appropriate that the township provide that device. We don't do that for our computers. We don't do that for our pickup trucks at this time. So this is further clarifying that these devices are township assets. And then by doing that, they would also fall under certain policies about what acceptable usage is, the security that's attached to them, and the ownership, should there be any kind of issues. So it just clarifies the rules of the game, I guess, as far as who gets what devices and what's the appropriate usage of those devices. That doesn't change that we're asking certain staff to carry devices after hours for either on-call or after-hours responsibilities. So we do allow for a certain amount of personal usage on them, but we don't. We've structured in such a way that we don't want to, or we are working to avoid or minimize any additional costs to the township in personal usage. Being a municipality, we do get a very favorable rates, both in the hardware and in the service rates that do protect us from runaway costs when it comes to additional usage on the devices. So that issue is relatively easy to maintain, but I'd be happy to answer any questions about this policy.
Any questions from council on the policy? Seeing none, can I have a mover, please, to move the recommendation? Wendy, you have a seconder? Rob, all in favor of the recommendation? Policy, thank you. Carried. Mountain Road culvert replacement, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve Davidson. Not much further to add to the report, just under the financial and budget line, that estimate that we have in there of 355, that includes HST as well. So everybody knows we get that back, so an extra 35 less, I guess, 40,000 less. But I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Jeff on this? I had one earlier, Jeff, that you answered, and that was whether or not there was any possibility of a development road type project for this or not, but you say there's not?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any current funding. The signs that you may have seen in another municipality is probably the OCF funding or the CCBF funding. And we already utilize those dollars annually in our resurfacing program.
Any comments from council on this? Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, Jeff, thanks very much for clarifying the HST part. That's something I would have thought of, and whenever it's $40,000 less, I'm very happy.
Anybody else? We have a recommendation in front of us that council receive a staff report entitled Mountain Road Culvert Replacement, and further that council recommends that staff proceed with the culvert replacement utilizing capital road reserve account. Have a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Sherry, seconded by Wenda, sorry. All in favor? All carried. Okay. Consent agenda. For the convenience and efficiency, repetitive and routine matters are included in the consent agenda and voted on collectively. Any council member can request to discuss an item separately within the consent agenda, which will then be removed and voted on separately from the consent agenda. Each and every matter of business containing in the consent agenda is recorded separately in the minutes of the meeting. Motion to adopt the consent agenda. Moved by Sherry, seconded by Crystal Lee. Anything wanted to be drawn out?
I'd like to bring out 1010.
1010. Anything else? Okay, go ahead, Crystal Lee.
Yeah, so I'd just like to draw attention to this. It's, let me open it. I got the wrong one here. From the town of Goderich, Agriculture and Forestry. They created a report called Critical Ground about the importance of soil protection. As we talk more about sovereignty, we think of food sovereignty. It can take up to 1,000 years for an inch of topsoil to form, and so they've come up with a 25-point report, but in this letter, they are asking the provincial and federal government to take measures to protect agricultural land in their jurisdictions, and I would just like to say that I would like to support this letter and have us forward the same.
Move to support. Seconder? Wenda? Okay, all in favor of supporting that resolution? Carried. Any? Okay. No, is there any other reports to be drawn out? If not, I'd ask for a resolution on the whole report to be received. Moved by Sherry, seconded by Crystal Lee. I got that? Yep. All in favor? Carried. Okay. God, there's a lot of them. Is there any notice of motion or direct motions? Sherry?
Get this over here where I can see. So last meeting, I made a notice of motion that staff be directed to gather information on how the Ottawa powerboat races in Aaronsville are funded and whether it is a for-profit event, and that staff inform the event organizers of the Lennox and Addington activation funding.
I need a seconder for that motion. Crystal Lee? Okay. All in favor of that? Carried.
Thank you.
Any announcements? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So I have two notice of motions here. One is regards to planning. And my notice of motion is that the CAO requests planning consultants from Arcadis to prepare a report for council detailing the advantages and disadvantages of our reducing our current land severance from 1 hectare to 1 acre. So that's the first one. The second one is, and I think I'd like to thank our clerk for helping me with this. The second one is about the emerald ash borer. Whereas, let's see, I have to read the whole thing. Whereas the emerald ash borer infestation has resulted in a substantial increase in dead ash trees throughout Ontario, resulting in extensive ecological, economic, and public safety challenges. And whereas dead ash trees contribute to potential hazards, including falling limbs, compromised power lines, and blocked transportation routes posing significant threats to public safety. And whereas removing and replacing dead ash trees is a costly undertaking that imposes financial burdens on municipalities, private organizations, and individual property owners, as we all know. Therefore, be it resolved that the council of the Township of Stone Mills formally requests the provincial and federal governments establish a dedicated fund to assist municipal governments like ourselves, private organizations, and property owners in effectively managing the removal and replanting of trees, therefore addressing the aftermath of this infestation. Be it further resolved that funding support should encompass grants for municipalities to fund community-wide removal and replanting initiatives. B, financial assistance for private organizations who are engaged in environmentally restorative work. And C, subsidies for individual property owners to safely remove and replace dead ash trees. And be it further resolved that this request be forwarded to the relevant provincial and federal ministries and agencies involved in environmental management, forestry, and public safety. That's the official motion, notice of motion, I guess, in this case. The reason is that if we had a microburst that came and tore up our streets or damaged our lands or whatever, we would file for some sort of emergency funding. This is a slow-moving natural disaster. We see it every day. Just take a drive. And in speaking with our public works manager, we're looking at significant costs for the responsibility of this township to remove these dead ash trees. We saw some pretty nasty forest fires as well this year, wildfires everywhere. So I think it's in our best interest to ask for help from the province. And I'm asking the other municipalities who are affected by this to join us in this and send the word to the province and the feds. So that's why I'm putting these forward.
Okay, so notice of motion will come forward next meeting. The motion. Any announcements? Oh, sorry, Sherry, go ahead.
Okay. I have 3 announcements. The first is that about 10 days ago, weekend before last, the Fire Fit competition in Tamworth was an incredible success. I'm so proud of all participants and organizers. There was even a team from office staff here at the Township that did an amazing job in the corporate challenge. Just wanted to congratulate everyone and best of luck to the participants that moved on to nationals being held in St. Catharines from September 10th to 14th. I won't mention any names because I'll forget some and then I'll be in trouble. Second announcement is that this past weekend was the 170th Centreville Fair. I just want to congratulate the Centreville Fair Board for another successful weekend. It was great. And lastly, yesterday in Napanee, the new men's hockey team from Tamworth, the Tamworth Sabres, played in the Labor Day Classic against Deseronto. Although Tamworth did not win, weren't even close, it was exciting, and there were over 500 people at that game. So I think it's going to be a great thing for our community, and the first home game is Saturday, September 20th at 7 at the Stone Mills Recreation Center. I just wanted to congratulate them and make people aware of that. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Go ahead.
What was the score, Sherry? I want to know. Oh, darn. I asked that because I was hoping you'd give me a 1 and I'd say they didn't get skunked.
Okay. I need confirmation bylaw 25, recommendation that bylaw 25 confirm the proceedings of Council of Stone Mills Township be enacted and passed, and that the Reeve clerk be authorized to sign and seal. Can I have a mover? Moved by Sherry, seconded by Wenda. Okay, all in favor? Okay. Meeting is adjourned. Motion to adjourn, moved by Sherry, seconded by Wendy. Okay, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, public. Attendance.